everybody. I'm Jay Scherr with Jay Scherr Business Consulting. We help entrepreneurs, business owners, and other leaders maximize their potential, build rock-solid foundations for their businesses, and create more freedom in their lives. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Retired General James Mattis said, "The most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears." On today's episode, we talk about the Navy SEAL mindset, leadership and holding ourselves to higher standards, identity and life transitions, coping with stress, anxiety, and depression, and more. My guest is a highly decorated Navy SEAL veteran who served 26 years in the U.S. Navy, 23 of those years in the SEAL teams. He had 10 total deployments, led teams on operations ranging from protecting interim Iraqi elected officials to undersea missions that required direct approval by the President of the United States. He's a husband and father, speaker, author, entrepreneur, and business and leadership advisor. His expertise in leadership and mindset is sought after by organizations ranging from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. He's been featured by Fox News, USA Today, MarketWatch, and other media outlets. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Naked Warrior Recovery and the man who's teaching us that we can transform our mindset and achieve our goals when we get naked, William Branum. William, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I was listening to that intro and I was like, who is that guy? I want to listen to whatever he has to say.
Me too. Well, I am thrilled that you're here. This is going to be a fantastic conversation, and I can't wait for our audience to be able to dig into this and hear your amazing story, the transformation that you've been through, and the incredible work that you're doing today. So let's dive right in. You know, I would love it if you would share with us something that you believed about yourself early in life that you discovered later wasn't true.
That I'm just a regular mediocre. Actually, I still believe that I'm just a regular mediocre person. I will say that when I was a kid, I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. I still have a lot of self-limiting beliefs, but I continue to set goals and surpass those goals.
So
not really sure how I got there. I just make a decision. I'm going to go do something and I go do it, despite whatever everyone else says.
Interesting. So if some people will say, go this way, you will go the other way.
Potentially. Maybe I don't. I didn't know that I was such a non-compliant person. I don't go with the crowd pretty much ever. And that I thought I was just like a weird nerd kid when I was a kid. When I say nerd, I don't mean in a smart way. I just mean in the weird kind of way. Maybe I'm still a bit of a nerd in that same weird kind of way, but yeah, I certainly, I am my own person for sure. I'm not one to be, to fall in line with the crowd. I definitely don't go with the crowd.
So speaking about self-limiting beliefs, give us an example of just one that is something that you've told yourself time and time again that maybe has held you back, but then you have figured out a way to either overcome it, change that storyline, change that belief, and show yourself that you're capable of moving past that.
Yeah. So I guess all the things that I do today, everything that I do today, I once upon a time said I would never do that. That's not me. I don't know how to do that. So for example, I own a company, Naked Warrior Recovery. We sell CBD products and some other supplement products. I have said my entire life, I don't want to be in sales. Sales are sleazy. Sales are this, sales are that. Salesmen are, used car salesmen, selling snake oil, whatever. I sell products. I sell stuff. I sell coaching. I sell consulting. I sell my own capabilities. I sell myself to speak on stage. So I've been in sales most of my life. I didn't even realize it. So even in the SEAL teams, there's always a sell that's happening. You're either trying to sell the mission, you're trying to sell the leadership on how to change SOPs. You're selling the guys that are working for you on, we need to do things this way, and this is why we need to do things this way. You're always convincing someone to do something your way because you believe it's the right thing. That's all sales is. I still struggle with it. Like, I'm not a sales guy. I'm a sales guy. You're a sales. Every one of us is a sales guy because we're just trying to convince someone to do something in a certain way. Leadership is all about sales, whether we like to believe that or not. So self-limiting belief, I'm not a sales. I don't do sales. I do sales. Still a little uncomfortable about some of it sometimes, but I'm always trying to get better.
So what is, since we have an audience of entrepreneurs and business owners and just people who are looking to improve and get better and grow, what's an area that you're trying to get better at sales? So when you think about it, you mentioned some keywords there, right? That it felt sleazy, or that it was like used car salesman type of selling. But you've obviously discovered that sales is everything we do, and it's you just outlined for us, right, how it applies in every area of life, from relationships to your military experience to business, raising children, everything. Children teach us about sales every single day,
right, all the
and
time.
yeah, all the time. So what is something that you're trying to get better at? What do you have a challenge with when it comes to sales?
I think, my biggest challenge when it comes to sales is I have a unhealthy relationship with money. And it's interesting. I was on a podcast and someone asked me about, like, what is your relationship with money? And I've been working on this relationship with money for most of my life. I remember when I was a kid, watching, it was Sunday afternoon after church. We were at my grandparents' house, and I think maybe it was a Saturday afternoon. I don't remember, but the sports announcer said, so and so head coach at, I don't know, Texas A&M. I don't remember. He's getting $1 million a year for his salary. And I remember my grandmother, and I grew up very poor, like free lunches, 1st through 12th grade, very poor. My grandmother saying that is a sin. And so I have this sort of thing stuck. Like, I realize $1 million is not really that much money in the grand scheme of like money in the world. But it was like, poor kid from, Meridian, Mississippi, $1 million. I'm like, oh, and that was just sort of this thing that was sort of it kind of poured into me as a kid. Bad teaching from, my parents and grandparents, but that's all they knew. And so now that I'm in this world of entrepreneurship, and I ask people for a very large amount of money when they're working with me or doing some event that I'm being a part of. And so I have to get out of my own head so that I can confidently ask someone for a large check, to receive my services and things like that. So I have to believe in myself and believe that I'm worth that much money.
I am so glad that you brought that up, and I appreciate you recognizing that, exposing our audience to that, because I know that this is something that many of us struggle with as well. So, I use the words scarcity versus abundance when it comes
Right.
to mindset around finances and other areas as well. And there are so many stories that we tell ourselves, stories that have actually been given to us by other people, that we just have taken in, we believe it, and it truly can hold us back. And it's not until we have that awareness, and the fact that you have that awareness is amazing in and of itself. Then it's what do we do with it, right? So once we have the self-awareness, now we can start to learn and use the tools to break that down so we can move past it. And you just nailed on something that is so critically important, and that's around worth, knowing your worth, right? So never undervaluing yourself. And how many times do you run into coaching clients that you work with who just don't truly know their worth, right? You can see it, but they can't necessarily see it for themselves because often we don't see our own potential. That's
Right.
recognized by someone else.
Yeah, and it's just a number at the end of the day. Either people will pay it or they won't. And sometimes you have to convince them it's worth the investment. Like, invest in yourself. You're not investing in me, you're investing in you. And what are you losing by not making that investment? Like, what's the ROI? It may not be a specific dollar amount on the backside, but what's the ROI in relation to your quality of life or your quality of
Absolutely.
business? Or, maybe quality of life is like the people that you're interacting with at work or the people that you're leading at work. Like, if you can change some things about yourself, to make yourself better, a better leader, a better whatever, then you're going to impact your quality of life with the people that you're interacting with, and impacting their quality of life as well, because you build a relationship, you build a place where people want to come to work, you build a place where people want to work as a team, not as individuals.
Culture,
100%. I
building
tell
that culture.
people, I tell every one of my coaching clients, and I'm struggling with whether I'm a coach or a consultant or an advisor or whatever. I don't like, titles are stupid. Sometimes I think, just because coach is starting, I think, turn into like a little bit of a dirty word, because everybody's a freaking coach, which is interesting. One of those things that I do now is coaching or consulting or advisor. I don't know the right word, but I always said I would never do that. Like, who the hell am I? What do I know about any of that stuff? And then I hired coaches to say, to help me really to market my CBD products, because I can't run ads or anything else. I have to be more strategic and more outside the box in the way that I market. And every one of my coaches, they're like, why aren't you coaching? Why aren't you bringing the value that you've learned from 26 years of service to the corporate world? Because they need what you have. And I'm like, what do I know about that? It turns out, so I did coaching or whatever for a couple of years for free, just like helping people out. And I realized that I was able to bring tremendous value. And so I was like, well, maybe I should try to charge money for this. And then I did, and then people paid, and then it has started to grow.
Well, see, William, it goes to that point that it took someone else to recognize
A
that
hundred
gift
percent.
that you already had. And then for
Right.
you to believe in that ability, taking the time to hone your skills and actually have case studies, right, that showed that the things that you're able to share with a company that can help transform their business, transform their lives. I mean, that's coaching, that's consulting, that's advising, right? That's all of those things. We can
Whatever the
call it
title
whatever
is.
we
Yeah.
want, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is you are moving someone, right? You are transforming something for them that's creating a better outcome than where they started from. And
Right.
not everyone can do that. So I think it's really amazing. I think about sales process as an example, and sales training is one thing that I offer to coaching clients of mine. But so many great salespeople have a sales process. They may not have it defined, and they may not have it spelled out, and they may not have a roadmap for it, but they intuit. They're so good at it. It's just natural to them. And it's not until someone steps back and is able to show them, okay, here is the process that you went through. This is something that's trainable. This is something that we can take that process and train a team
Mm-hmm.
to improve
Yep.
their results following what you're doing each and every day. So it's similar to what happened in your case. There's so much knowledge that you have, so much experience that you have, that someone said, you can take this because companies need this, right? This
Right.
this can
Yep.
make a significant difference. So I love that story. I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but I want to amplify how important that it actually is. So take us back a bit. I'm curious, what how did you ultimately get into the Navy, and was a military career what you had in mind as a young man, and was the Navy your original choice?
To answer your second question first, the Navy was not my original choice. I swore that I would, again, there I go, making promises to myself that I absolutely don't keep. I will never join the Navy. I'll join one of these other organizations, but never the Navy. But I always knew that I wanted to be part of some sort of small elite military organization. I had heard of Green Berets. I had heard of Marine Corps Recon. I'd heard of Army Rangers. And those were some of the role models that I had as a kid. I watched GI Joe, favorite cartoon of all time. I watched, John Wayne was a Green Beret in the movie Green Berets in Vietnam, so I had that sort of exposure. John Rambo was I believe he was a Army Ranger, and so those were all things that I was exposed to and watched as a kid. And then I went to this Boy Scout jamboree, and the kid that was my tent partner, he was like, and this was my 11th going into 12th grade. The guy was like, yeah, I'm going to be, I want to join I want to go to the Naval Academy when I graduate high school. I want to fly F-14 Tomcats, like the movie Top Gun, and I want to be a Navy SEAL. And I'm like, those things sound cool. What's a Navy SEAL? And he explained it's the most elite military fighting force in the world. They work in small groups. They jump out of airplanes. They blow stuff up. They do all this other stuff. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do all those things. And so, but I swore I would never join the Navy. And then I came back from that national jamboree, and the Navy recruiter calls me like a week later. And it's like, hey, man, have you ever thought about joining the Navy? And my internal gut was like, hell no. But I also had to think about, well, you won't become a Navy SEAL unless you join the Navy. And then I thought, well, maybe I want to go to the Naval Academy also, and maybe I want to fly F-14 Tomcats because that sounds really cool. And so I was like, yeah, I want to do all these things. And he was like, awesome. Why don't you come on down here to the recruiting station? Let's have a conversation. They showed me a really cheesy Navy SEAL recruiting video, and I was like, yeah, where do I sign and when do I leave? And I'm like, I still have one more year of high school. So I was like, all right, let's go. But yeah, to answer your question, I had zero intention of joining the Navy, except that I wanted to become a Navy SEAL. So I had to join the Navy.
So was there were you ready to leave home? I mean, was there a pull to get out of where you were to do something different?
No, I was pretty comfortable in where I was. I mean, I had friends, I had a support network, I had, the boys, I had, and my grandmother was like, don't join the Navy. If you don't join the Navy, I'll pay for your first year of college or something like that. And I'm like, I don't care about college. I do not care about that. I'm not a smart kid. I later found out, like, many, 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 many years later, that I'm super ADHD and like diagnosable so much. I took a neuropsych eval, went to the National Intrepid Institute for Excellence, NICO. It's a TBI center outside of Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland. And I think it's all privately funded. And, when you go in there, you are like, they focus on you. When you walk in that door, like, you're for 4 weeks, and they look at you from head to toe, what's inside your head, the trauma you've had, your whole body. They look at you completely. And so they, part of it was this neuropsych eval, see how you process things. And they're like, dude, your IQ would be way up here, but your attention is in every single category. If you just say, it's like the scale is 1 to 100, and at 25 and below is attention deficit. So I was at 25, like, I was scoring super high on everything except attention was 25 across the board. And I was working really hard, trying really hard to score well on this test. I didn't even know what I was taking. And they're like, yeah, you for sure. There's like, if you were below that, we would diagnose you as ADHD, but you're like right at the, like, you're right on the line. I'm in that gray zone. And I'm like, well, okay. So maybe I'm not as dumb as I've always thought I was. I just have some attention issues. So I work really hard on those attention things.
Amazing. Okay, so now you go into the Navy,
Yep.
and so you served for 26, was it
20,
26 years?
26 years. Yeah.
Okay, and a significant number of those years were in the SEAL
Yeah.
teams.
20,
So
23 of the 26, 23 out of 26.
okay, so you obviously knew. I mean, your goal was to get into the SEAL teams from the
100%. Yeah.
moment that was the drive to go.
Yes.
So what was that experience like? And did you believe enough in yourself as you began to find out what was truly involved in becoming a SEAL? Did you believe that you were that person who could do this?
Yes. 100%. However, I don't think I really understood what was involved. So I think that ignorance certainly played to my advantage. Not knowing how, I'm like, how hard can it be? Oh, wait, I got there. It's pretty dang hard. But I didn't show up to quit, so let's just keep going. And it was never, it's nothing that you can't do. Everything is doable, 100% doable, because there's thousands of people that came before me, and they did it just fine. It's whether you want to do it or not. What SEAL training, buds, selection, that whole process, it's just to see if you really have the desire to be there. Because I can tell you, no matter how miserable I was in buds and SEAL training, I was 10 times more miserable either doing training events at the team or in real world combat operations, because you can't call for a timeout in real world combat operations. Like, no one's listening. You can't be like, I don't really want to be here anymore. Can we just like do a quick reset? And so it wasn't until I was actually in combat that realization came back to me, where I was like, you know what? I really felt bad for some of the guys that quit during buds. Like, I know that they could do it, but this is the point that it really matters. This is the point. This is the time. Like, they didn't make it for a reason. They quit for a reason, because when they got to this point right here, where you can't say, I don't want to be here anymore, you still got to be here. Like, even in business, it's not that big a deal. You could have a $1 billion loss. It's still not life or death. It's just money. So, oh, well, you're this bank went belly up, or, defaulted on its, deposits. Maybe you go to jail for fraud, but it's not life or death. It's not, are you going to go home tonight? Of course you're going to go home. You're going to be a little bit miserable. You're going to be, pissed off or stressed out, but it's not life or death. It's not like, if I make the wrong move, or when is this gunfight going to end? Or when, 3 days later, we're still in a gunfight. How's that possible? Well, we have a very active and a very persistent enemy. So again, you can't call time out. You just have to keep going. And that's really the point of SEAL training. Even though you can quit, there's always, that the event is going to end at some point. In combat, you never know when it's going to end or when it's going to be your time.
So did you get to a point where you could sense when another human being was going to quit, ring the bell, decide I'm out?
Yeah. Some of them happen faster than others, but there were I did have a lot of surprises, especially early on, where, we would have these guys that are just freaking studs. Everything was easy from my perspective, was easy for them. They were at the front of the pack on every run. They were at the front of the swims. They were the fastest on the obstacle course. They were natural leaders, very charismatic. But oftentimes they would quit, because it doesn't matter how good you do it in buds, you're going to fail. And most of those guys were used to doing a really good job. Jocko Willink talks about discipline equals freedom. These guys had the discipline That's how they got there. That's how they got in such great shape. That's how they were collegiate athletes. They were superstars. They were Olympic alternates. They had the discipline to do that, but they didn't have the grit or the grind to accept failure that you're going to experience during SEAL training. During, like, you fail. Even in the teams, we'll set up scenarios that there's no right answer, where you're going to fail no matter what. You could do everything perfectly, you're still going to fail. It happens in combat also. But you have to be ready to accept that failure, learn your lessons from that failure, and then build your success off of those failures. Some of the biggest leaders in the world have a tremendous amount of failure under their belt, and that's how they got where they are today. I learn more through failure than I do from doing something right. If I do it right, I'm like, I just got lucky. So let's figure out how to break it, and then we can rebuild it. And so I know actually what I'm doing and what the right thing is.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. We've had different experiences, but from a failure perspective and the lessons that we learn from failure, those are the most valuable, certainly from my experience. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. So, as I think about the training itself, the physical side, the mental side, if you were to look at a scale, if you will, that showed physical and mental, and if you had to rate what which requires more effort, and I'm sure there's no doubt it's a combination of both, but is it more of a mental preparation with a lot of physical, or is it tons of physical with some mental? And I just want to try to understand it and wrap my arms around it from your experience and perspective.
I don't think there's a I think it's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's equal across the board.
Okay.
I think it is equally as mentally challenging as it is physically challenging. And because they switch places. Sometimes, I have to work really hard to get through this sort of suck that I'm experiencing. And then once I get on the other side of it, then I have to push myself to keep going. So the mental piece that keeps me pushing me physically gets me to the next point, and then they just switch places depending on where what phase I'm in. Like we would do, just for example, we would do 4-mile timed runs, because there are several events during SEAL training that are measurable, that they judge your performance off of and allow you to either keep going or they kick you out because you failed those very measurable events. A lot of it is just it's subjective. Do you have what it takes? Are you still here at the end of the day? But are you meeting these very minimal, I'm going to call them minimum standards to advance to the next phase of training? And so it's not just, did you not quit, but are you progressing physically? So, on these 4-mile time runs, I had a point that I completely forgot. Oh, I remember. So what I would end up doing is I learned about myself is the faster I get to that out of breath, like I kind of want to quit, but I have to keep going, and then I catch my second wind. I realized that it's much easier to run longer once I hit that second wind. I get that second stride. So what I would do is I would try to get there as quickly as possible. So when they would say go, I would sprint for like 800 yards until I'm like, oh my God. And then I have to slow down. So I'm in the front. I'm not a good runner, by the way. So I was in the front for like, maybe 300 yards. And then the fast runners would catch me and leave me in the dirt. But I would get to that second wind much faster. And so that helped me run the whole race faster, and get better times, because I figured out how to trick myself into getting to that second wind a lot faster, like push through that wall of initial suck and then keep going.
So you conditioned yourself, your mind and your body, to be able to do
Right.
that, because you discovered at some point that once I reach that line in the sand, if you will, where that second wind comes in, that
Right.
is where true performance takes over for you. Would you say that same conditioning for you specifically applies in other areas as well?
I think so. I think I have to, I thought a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of coaches, gurus, whoever, they talk about, do the hard thing first. Do the, eat the big frog first, or put the big rocks in first. Well, there's a lot of times I don't feel like doing the big stuff. So what I'll do is I will build momentum, and I'll do little things. It's the 80-20 principle. Put most of your effort into the 20%, and the 80% doesn't really matter. Well, sometimes I got to start with the 80%. I got to do those little things, like reply to the email, write, something small and easy before I try to write like full on sales copy, or before I get on a call with a very complicated client. Or get on and teach a class. I have to, it's like working out. I got to do the warm up. I got to get on the bike and ride for a little bit. I got to jog, a mile. I got to lift very light weights for high reps to get my body warmed up, to get my muscles ready, or get my brain ready to actually do those super hard, very complicated tasks that I have to do in my own business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the visualization that you just gave us, or the visual, if you will, of working out, let's say, where we don't go in cold and start lifting heavy, we're doing warm-ups, right? We're doing smaller things first to get ourselves ready, our body ready to take on the stress of the heavy weight that we're doing, whether
Right.
it's legs, chest, arms, what have you. That's very interesting. And to your point about momentum, once we start to do that and momentum starts to build, it's almost like the flywheel effect, where once the momentum is there, it's like you're moving so fast that
Right.
nothing can get in your way.
Right.
And that,
But
to
you got to
me,
start that momentum. It's like inertia. It's like you're lifting a really heavy thing and trying to move it. It's not going to move until you get it going. And sometimes it's like little, you rock it back and forth. Okay. Oh, now it's going. And it's the same thing for us. I am, it's very easy for me to procrastinate doing something. I have to make a decision to go do it, but I can just sit at my keyboard in a blank Word document. I'm like, okay, what am I going to write? Just start writing some stuff. Who cares? It doesn't matter what it is. Just start typing some stuff out. Go. That's what I mean. Go, like, reply to some emails. Go do something easy. Turn the brain on. Start recruiting those neurons to start thinking differently. Start recruiting different muscle fibers to start lifting differently. I call that creating small victories. Just do small things. Create those victories, those small victories. And this is part of a presentation that I give from stage generally. I learned this create small victories when I was going through prisoner of war school, where they taught us how to survive, evade the enemy. Once you become a prisoner of war, resist interrogation, and then try to escape at some point. And but what they taught us is, when you're being interrogated, you resist the interrogation as long as you can until they start beating you a lot, and then you start giving up some information. But you give up just enough information to get them to stop beating you, but you change some of the details about the information that you give them. Like, maybe you give them your actual name and maybe where you're from, but maybe you change where you're actually from. Oh, I lived there once. If they come back and follow up on some of the details, I used to live there. I'm really from some other place. And you give them information very slowly, but you give it at your the way that you want to give it to them. You control. Small victories gives you control when you are in situations that are completely out of your control. So, for example, if they walk you across the prison compound going back to your cell, and they say, don't look to the left, every chance you get, you look to the left. You are always trying to take back control when you feel like your life is out of control. And there are so many things where you can feel like our lives are out of control, or we're losing money, or whatever it is. What can you actually control? You control what you can control, and don't worry about anything else. Focus on those things that you can control. I can do these small tasks to build momentum so that I can do the bigger tasks in about 20 minutes after I get warmed up.
that
I
is
can
such a
lift
powerful point.
315 whatever for sets of 20 in deadlift, but I can't do it right away. I gotta warm up to it.
Yeah, amazing. That's great words of wisdom to share with all of us. So let's talk about the Navy SEAL mindset, because we've been talking kind of around a bit
In and
the
out.
the
Yeah.
the word of or the term mindset. You've defined this in such a way, you've created your own term for it, right? The get naked.
Right.
So describe that to us. And as you're doing that, William, could you give us a brief example of each of those five in action, and make it
Sure.
personal? Where has it applied for you, and make it personal for us?
I'll do my best. Okay, so I came up with this idea of get naked originally, like I said earlier, when I was talking about my CBD company. It was really a journey that I went through. So I talk about my transition from the military to civilian life as the hardest military mission I've ever been on. I for my entire adult life, I've been in the military and mostly part of the SEAL team. So I had a purpose, I had a mission, and I had a team. And I had a very badass purpose, a badass mission, and an even badder ass team. Hopefully, I can swear a little bit on here. I apologize if I offended anyone.
You're good.
Um, but and then I had that, pretty much my entire adult life, and then one day it was all gone. It was like I referenced the movie where Thanos, that Avengers movie where Thanos like snaps his fingers and half the world, universe's population vanishes. You're having dinner with your family and then they're gone. And you're like, what the hell happened? Where'd they go? What do I do? Like, and you just lose a part of yourself. So that was what my entire adult life, that's what I've done. And even childhood leading into that, that's all I've ever known, all I've ever wanted to do. And then when I retired, air quotes, I had to figure out what's my new purpose, my new mission, and my new team. I started a company. I had some failure there, consulting company, because, and again, I struggle with titles. I think titles are I struggle with them. But so I started using CBD. And what CBD did for me, it was a modality that helped turn down some of the noise in my head. And, I have a lot of noise up there from, 26 years of service. I've got some not so awesome relationships. And I was pretty much just drinking myself to sleep at night, just glasses and glasses of vodka. And so CBD, I didn't notice it when I was taking it the first time, but I started drinking less. I started having better positive self-talk. And so I was like, maybe CBD is my new mission and purpose. I don't know. And so I met a girl at a business conference, and she was in the CBD industry. And hey, I want to do CBD. I want to maybe you're my new mission and purpose and team. And she was like, so do you want to do A to B, B to B, or B to C? And I was like, I don't know those letters. I want to do CBD. And she leaned in and she said, she said, well, why don't you start your own CBD company? And I said, I don't know how to do that. She's like, you are a Navy SEAL. You can figure it out. So she gave me whatever more credit than I was giving myself. So I went home. I politely asked her for my man card back. And then I put that, not to give that up ever again, quite so easily. And so I went home and Googled how to start a CBD company. So when I was putting that together, I was like, okay, so Naked Warrior Recovery, there's a story behind that, relating back to World War II and pre Navy SEAL missions, which were the predecessor to today's Navy SEAL. And so I was like, well, I need something a little more, marketing and sales and all this other stuff. So I was like, well, I had to get naked. I had to become vulnerable enough to take my ego off so I could find the healing that I actually needed. And so, or that mask that I was hiding behind. And so I had to be brave enough to ask for help. And to do that, I had to stop wearing my ego around and hiding behind that. Armor, our ego is like this body armor that we wear around. In combat, we wear our body armor, we go into harm's way, and then it protects us. And then we come back, we take it off, and we hit the showers and clean up and get ready for the next mission. In life, we don't generally do that. We become attacked by whoever or whatever, and we just put this ego up, this armor up, and we hide behind it. Well, first I had to figure out how to take my ego off so I could find humility, find vulnerability, so I could find the healing that I actually needed. And then, so I was using that as sort of a tagline. So you need to, like, if you want to, get better in anything you do, you have to get naked. And then one of my coaches was like, everyone here needs a signature presentation. I'm like, what's that? Okay, a signature presentation is something that you are an expert in, and it's something that you can deliver in 10 to 15 minutes or as long as 90 minutes. And so you should be able to scale this presentation to meet whatever the audience requirement is. And again, it should be like your brand signature presentation. It's your brand. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm using this Get Naked tagline. So let's just make Get Naked my signature presentation. So I couldn't make it to be, 8 letters across, GETNAKED. So I just made naked the acronym. So, and I call it 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. So 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. The secret is you have to get naked. And so it's really fun to do from stage. And again, speaking was one of those things that I said, I'm never going to be one of those guys standing on the stage. I have nothing to give. I have nothing to talk about. I love it. I love speaking. Although when I almost 100% when I get on stage, I will say something to the effect of, I'm more comfortable in a gunfight than I am speaking in front of people, but we're just going to work through this. And so it helps to humanize me a little bit more to the audience. And I've had people come up behind me like, I'm so glad he said he was scared because I'm terrified. And I was like, okay, so I make it okay for everyone else to be scared, but you still have to deliver the message. So getting back to naked is an acronym. So the N stands for never quit. And everyone says never quit, but no one tells you how to do it. And I say create small victories. And just for example, so during Hell Week of SEAL training, it's week number 5. It's 5.5 days. You don't sleep. You're cold. You're wet. You're miserable. You lose about 70% of the people from that start buds. About 70% of them quit leading up to Hell Week. And then of those people that haven't quit yet, about 70% of those people quit during Hell Week. And then whoever's left, most of those people make it through, but not everyone. Again, there are tasks and conditions and standards that you have to meet along the way, and not everyone passes everything, or they get injured or something, they have a bad attitude, or they get a DUI, or they do something stupid and they get kicked out for those reasons. So the N is for never quit. The A is accept failure. Again, we talked about that a little bit. Failure's been one of those biggest lessons in my life. And I think one of the things I always come back to on that is combat swimmer. So that's where we're underwater. We have a rebreather. It's 100% O2. So you exhale carbon dioxide. It goes into this like scrubber container. It looks like kitty litter. It filters out all of the carbon dioxide and leaves whatever oxygen that's left in your exhalation breath, fills a breathing bag. And so you can be underwater, sending no bubbles to the surface for up to 4 hours. But you navigate with a compass, a depth gauge, and a watch. So that's how you know how far you are or where you should be in the mission, navigating your way underwater to a ship or some other target that you're going to drop a package off on or pick something up or whatever it is. And so it's very easy to get lost underwater. It's very easy to mess that up. And so no matter how good of a job I planned, I did planning, at some point during every block of training, I screw up at least once. And in that mess up of whatever it is, I have a tremendous amount of learning. And so I try to fail as early as I possibly can. Usually our ego gets in the way, and we try not to fail. And then when we have we've gotten all this momentum and then we fail, we're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to me. And it even hurts even more. So if I can fail as early as possible, figure out all the wrong things to do those first, then I have those lessons and I know exactly how to navigate the areas that I should not go into. And so that's what, a lot of I've had failures in leadership. I certainly know how to not lead. So whatever's left over must be how you lead. Let's see. The K is to kill mediocrity, because, I will say we are at war. We're at war every single day because we're surrounded by the enemy. We're surrounded by mediocrity. And if you don't think so, tell me how easy it is to not get stuck scrolling your phone, scrolling social media, finding excuses to not work out, to not attack your goals for the day. When you do that, you become mediocre. And it happens to me all the time. But I consciously think about it. I'm like, how long have I put the stupid phone away, put it in airplane mode, and then go do what you're supposed to do? Easy for us to get momentum in the wrong direction. Find momentum becoming mediocre. change that, turn those things off, eliminate those things from your life as best you can, and focus on the things that are going to make you awesome. So that's really what killing. And so what I tell people, to kill mediocrity, you need to compete. You compete in every aspect of your life, but start small and simple. Compete in kindness. Can you be the kindest person you know? Can you be kinder than anyone else in your circle? Do you know how much impact you will have on someone's life if you come up and just say, hello, good morning, how are you? It's so great to see you again. Like that changes people. Like they could have gotten up and been in a bad mood. You could be in a bad mood too. But if you just act kind, you will feel better on the inside. Compete in gratitude. I've found that gratitude has been a superpower for me. Every day I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. And one of those things, 100% of the time, is something that has created incredible misery in my life. But had I not experienced that absolute misery, I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I learned. Be grateful for those failures.
William,
Once you start,
before you move on, what is one thing that you wrote down this morning?
It's something that I write down almost every day. It's a person in my life that is, and still causes me a considerable amount of stress and anxiety and pain, because it's continually attacking me in some way. And I'm not going to mention who they are. I will off just because retribution is a bitch. But you never know what they're going to listen to. But if they listen to it, they know who they are. But they've created a tremendous amount of stress. But again, I would not be here today had I not experienced the things that I've experienced because of the pain that person has brought to my life. And so I'm grateful. I'm not grateful for some second and third order effects that didn't impact me directly, or they still impact me directly, but they impact other people in a very negative way. But I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had, because I've been able to take those experiences and share them with other people and help them through hard times. Help them. So those are, I'm grateful for the opportunity to fail and experience misery so that I know what awesomeness is like. I know what happiness, I know what all of that means. And so gratitude is a superpower. So compete in those things, kindness and gratitude, and then start competing in other areas in your life. And what you'll see is the people that you have that are around you, when you start killing mediocrity and you started competing in all these other areas, you're going to raise the bar in your life. And the people that are around you that are impacted by you, you're going to raise the bar in their life. And so you're going to start changing lives just by killing the mediocrity in your life and making everyone else's lives around you better. The E is expose your fears, and I don't mean lions and tigers and bears. I mean like those fears that live in the deep, dark part of your brain. I like to think about fear to be like a vampire. A vampire lives in the darkness and it sucks the life out of you. These fears do the same thing. These are the fears that keep you up at night. They're the fears, the stresses, the thoughts, the anxieties that pop up when you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and you can't go back to sleep because these things are swirling around. You have arguments when you're alone in your car driving along, and they're all super dumb. But one of the things that I there's a lot of ways to expose those fears, and generally they're do things that scare you. The way you kill a vampire is you expose it to sunlight. The way you kill fear is exactly the same way. So if you're, you have a low self-esteem, maybe you were beat up as a kid, I will tell you to go take a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class for a year. You're going to learn a skill set. You're going to learn how to defend yourself. And the people that are in that class with you are going to want you to get better because you're going to help them get better. If you have a fear of public speaking, go take a public speaking class, go take an acting class. Get in front of your peers and start speaking. You're going to find out very quickly that they want you to succeed. Your peers are going to want you to be successful. They want you to do a good job speaking, and they will help you get better at speaking. Expose those fears. Do the things that scare you. You're afraid of sales. Go sell some stuff. Go take some sales training and get a job where you can sell stuff. We talked about sales earlier, and I was on a call last night with a guy. It was a mastermind call. And one of the guys in there, like his script and his tonality and everything that he was like, it was just on point. I'm like, I want to be like that. Like, it's not cheesy, it's not salesy, it's not sleazy. It's just like, it's just a conversation. But he has the script down so well, and the tonality. I was like, oh my God, that was beautiful. And I'm like, I'm not worthy. That was ninja. That was like full on ninja scale, like sales script process, whatever. And so I'm like, can I come and work for you for like a month just to like learn how to sell like that? Because again, you know, no one likes rejection. I hate rejection, but I'm also grateful for it because it's feedback, immediate failure is feedback. And you know, if one of my mentors, a very good friend of mine who's in the billionaire category, he still gets these stresses and anxieties and things. And what he says fear does not exist on paper. And so when he's driving along and he has all that stress built up, and it's like consuming him, he'll pull over, he'll like stop at a Starbucks, he'll go in, order a coffee, small coffee, he'll sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper, not his iPad, not his phone, not anything else, write it, and he writes out every one of those stresses, those anxieties, those thoughts that are bothering him on a piece of paper, and he reads it back to himself, and he's like, are you kidding me? This is the thing that's bothering me. But it wasn't until he exposed those fears that now he's able to control the fears. And when you control the fears will no longer control you. So you have to expose those fears, and the D is to do the work. And you know, there's a saying that, you know, let me back up just a little bit. So social media plays a very big part of our life, whether it's how we market, how we spend our time, how we communicate with other people. And oftentimes it has driven us to have sort of this instant gratification. You post something, you get likes, you get comments, you get whatever, you get feedback right away. You get this sort of instant gratification for posting something out there in the world. And so we've forgotten what it's like to actually do work. We think if we like write an email or we do a thing, we're going to get feedback right away and we're going to make $1 million on this thing. And it doesn't work like that. The world doesn't work like that. Although our brains are being reprogrammed to work like that, or to think like that, to think about this instant gratification that we have in our life. So, but that's not how everything works. So I'm sure you've heard the story or the saying that said Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, I guarantee you it was built every single day until it became an empire. And that's how we have to think about our life. That's how we have to think about the things that we're doing. We have to show up and do the work every single day. We have to have the grit and the grind to keep going and keep pushing through. Even when we don't think it's working, we just show up and we do it every day. So there's a saying in the SEAL teams that says you earn your trident every day. And the trident is that shiny gold pin that we wear on our chest, eagle, anchor, and a musket, and the pitchfork, Poseidon trident. And the whole purpose of that is to say, hey, just because you made it through SEAL training doesn't make you a Navy SEAL every single day. You have to earn that thing every single day. You can't do it once and the work is done. But that's the mentality I had when I left SEAL training. When I left SEAL training and I showed up at the team, I thought, even before I left, I was like, I'm about to graduate the hardest military training in the world. Everything from here on out is going to be easy. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, when you show up at the team, you're expected to perform better every single day. It doesn't matter if it's 0.0000001% better. You need to get better at everything, at your craft every single day. You need to show up and perform and do the work every single day. Always trying to improve. And if you show up and you don't, no one cares about your rank or your title or how many deployments you have or anything else, or that you went to BUDS. No one cares. All they care about is what you're doing today. And that's why we say the only easy day was yesterday in the SEAL teams. And so doing the work, it's a mindset. It's something you have to embrace. It's something you have to like put deep down in your soul. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do the work every single day. And once it becomes a part of your mindset, it becomes a part of you, and then you will become unstoppable. So again, it's the N is for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is to kill mediocrity. The E is expose your fears, and D is do the work. And you have to do it every single day.
Amazing. I absolutely love that. And for all of you that are watching and listening right now, I certainly hope you're taking notes. make sure that you go back, rewind, and listen to this episode again. There is so much amazing value that has been shared with you. And if you're willing to not only listen, if you're willing to do the work, take action on what you've heard, you can also change your life and your business and the lives of those that are around you. So, William, amazing. Thank you so much
And
for sharing that.
and
I've got
and
a
really quickly, just
yes.
real quick. So I created a PDF that really outlined a lot of this stuff, minus many of the stories. If you go to the number five sealsecrets.com, seal SEAL, like Navy SEAL, 5sealsecrets.com, and just put your information in there, and I'll send you a PDF that really breaks everything down. And I've gotten some really great feedback from this PDF where people have just been like, I laminate it and like put it on their wall, and then so they can always go back and review it. So
Outstanding. We're going to link to that as well as your social handles in the show notes. Couple quick questions for you as we wrap up the conversation. One is, would you please leave our audience with a challenge? What would you challenge them to do?
I would say make bold adjustments. So most people are like, oh, just keep iterating and iterating and iterating till you find the way around it. I think that's okay in the beginning, but I think there's also another uh, line of thinking. So if you iterate a few times and you're not getting the results that you want to get, do something completely bold and completely opposite. So you see, I have the, I'm get naked is my sort of my tagline. That's kind of bold. That's like, I was a little bit scared to do that. I'm like, a little risque. It's a little, maybe it's too polarizing for some people. Like, I don't always wear it to my kids' school, but sometimes I do. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't, but it certainly opens up conversation. And so where I got this idea of make bold adjustments is when I was teaching sniper school, and then I would go back to the team. What I noticed, like after every, maybe we have guys that, they were doing like a headquarters tour. So they weren't, shooting, moving and communicating. They were busy like writing emails and like managing and leading and doing the operations piece and things like that. A lot of the admin side of being a SEAL. And they'd come back and they'd be in the platoon and they would have to recite in their weapons and things like that. And I would watch them and I could spot it pretty much right away. They would shoot, we're shooting at like 25 yards and their impacts just aren't moving across the paper because they're making these small adjustments to their optic or their sights or whatever. And so I would come over and I say, can I see your gun? And I would do these just bold, ridiculous adjustments to their optic. And they're like, bro, you just like probably broke my thing. And I'm like, no, it's cool. Just go ahead, humor me, try it out. And so what would happen is their impact would move across the paper, past the bullseye, but it would actually be closer to the bullseye. And then they could make the iterative, adjustments to get into the bullseye. So if you're not hitting where you want to hit, go try something extremely bold and almost the opposite of what's right. Like if someone says you shouldn't do that, maybe go try and do that. Like that doesn't work, blah, 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 whatever. Go try it anyway. Maybe it doesn't, but maybe it will work for you. If it's oftentimes it's do the opposite thing, make bold adjustments. And I could talk politics right now, but I won't. But if you watch politics, there's a lot of bold things that are happening from one side of the aisle versus the other. And so use those, like pay attention, like see what's happening in the culture that's being driven and take notes and use those examples. Maybe not those exact examples, but as an idea of like you can make incredibly bold, like irrational decisions and see what happens.
So good. So for all of you, what bold adjustment are you going to make? I would love it if you would share that in the comments, and I'll make sure that we share those bold adjustments with William so he knows what kind of impact he's making and how that translated for you. So William, here's my final question to you. What is one of the most valuable, unexpected lessons that you've learned from one of your clients?
This is a good one. Don't overthink it. I was right before this call. I was on a call with one of my clients, and she just put on the biggest event that has ever happened in her industry's history, at least in that country. And and that was some of the things that we talked about today. Is she came up with the idea in December, right before Christmas, and then she executed the event in April the 20th of this year. So it was 4 months, and she was like, if I'd have made it 12 months out, I would still be stressing over it and doing it and whatever. That's why we just said, just do it now. Just like, what are you waiting for? Just call the people that you need, start selling tickets, and go crush it. And I'll open it for you. I'll be your keynote. Let's go. And she was like, yeah, had I not just went ahead and executed it, I would still be overthinking it. And so that's what we're continuing down that path of like, I know you have a million good ideas. Let's just focus on the thing that is going to make you money.
Yeah, that's
Focus, like
fantastic.
all the other things don't matter. Like great idea. Let's just focus on the thing that's going to make you the most amount of money. And then with
Absolutely.
whatever free time you have after that, we can do the rest of it.
There you go. Oh, that is so good. William, I want to thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I can just tell, I can feel the energy, and I know that this is connecting and landing with so many people right now that are watching and listening to this. So I want to thank you for showing up as your true, authentic self, peeling back the layers, being true to who you are, sharing the pain, sharing the great things as well, and just being so full of wisdom and knowledge and insights. So I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and listening. And I do have a favor to ask. Would you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? That helps this podcast grow, expand its reach, and attract amazing guests like William. And to enjoy more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button. And until next time, you keep learning, keep growing, download your copy of William's 5 SEAL Secrets to Success, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.